Welcome to Moments with Marianne. Allow me to interrupt your train of thought with something that may be one of the most interesting things you hear today. This is Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with our special guest, Linda Francis, who is the author of The Heart of the Soul. Many of you know Linda. She's the co-founder of the Seat of the Soul Institute with Gary Zokauf. She is deeply dedicated to assisting individuals in aligning their personality and soul in order to create authentic power. So let's welcome to the show, Linda Francis.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm looking forward to being with you on the show and with all the listeners.
Well, thank you, Linda. It's such an honor to have you here and talk about Heart of the Soul, emotional awareness. I have to ask, what inspired you to write this book?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We knew that we wanted to share one of the tools of creating authentic power, and we wanted to share it in a way that would be simple and easy for people to understand and give a lot of examples and exercises to support people. Because it's not something we usually do, right? We're not usually thinking about our emotions or really feeling what's going on in our body.
So when people hear the term emotional awareness, I think some of them are going, okay, I'm not quite sure what that is. Can you share with us what emotional awareness is?
Well, emotional awareness is being able to become aware of your emotions that come up in your body as physical sensations. And it's a very exciting process, because once you are aware of what's going on in your body as physical sensations, you'll know what kind of emotions are coming up in you. So in other words, let's say I feel jealous of someone, and I think, and I have thoughts and angry thoughts or upsetting thoughts or feeling like I'm inferior or whatever the thoughts may be for each person. And I can actually bring it to how my own experience. That was one of the first things that I actually healed or worked on. Really, I don't know if an emotion is ever really healed, meaning that I was aware. I thought I was a jealous person and that I had a right to feel jealous. And so when I met Gary, I still had that very strong emotion, and I felt like I had a right to feel the way that I did. And so I began to do an exploration, because I knew that wasn't right. That can't be right. This emotion, this feeling of jealousy didn't have it. And I was learning that because I had read The Seat of the Soul. And I knew that everything that I was feeling had to do with me. And I needed to look at that in myself and change myself, not try to change everyone outside of me, because that would be external power. So what I did is I began this process of every time I felt that emotion of jealousy, I'd notice my thoughts again, and then I would notice what was going on in my body as physical sensations. And when I felt jealous, I'd always feel pain in my heart, somewhere in my heart, although I hadn't noticed that before. But then I began to really notice, okay, what's happening in my body as I'm feeling these emotions, as I'm noticing these thoughts. And I would notice that I had pain in my chest area, my heart area, and I also had pain in my solar plexus. And it was pretty intense feeling. But instead of feeling that before, I would just project it out onto someone else, that it's their, they are the cause of it. But instead, I thought, okay, I have things to learn here. And I kept, every time I felt jealousy, I noticed it in myself. I would feel what was going on in my body as physical sensations. And I also would notice my thoughts, and I would choose not to act from that place. And I'll give you an example. At first, when I felt jealous, actually, Gary brought up something to me one time. I was at a many years ago. We were at a gathering in our small town, and he noticed that I was acting differently, and he didn't know what was going on. I felt like kind of cold, and he didn't really understand what was happening. And he asked me, "Is there something happening with you?" And I didn't notice at the time what it was because it was kind of normal for me to feel like I was afraid that there would be someone else he would be interested in at this gathering, another woman. I was really worried. That was what the frightened part was worried about. And so I wanted to leave, and I didn't feel warm or loving or anything because I was caught in that frightened part of my personality. And it was so interesting. What happened is I realized, oh, what he's saying to me, there is something going on with me. And I'd never realized it before. In fact, I thought I was a jealous person. Not that I had a part of me that felt jealous, but that I was actually a jealous person. And that's just the way it is. And so after that, I began to really start looking at that when it happened again. And so I remember that we were at another gathering sometime later, and the same thing was beginning to happen in me. But this time I noticed what was going on in my body. And I felt the pain in the energy center, in the heart, and in the solar plexus. And then I said to Gary, I'm having that same feeling again, but I'm not going to act on it this time. I'm not going to I feel it. I know it's there, but I'm not going to act on it. And then I kept doing that over and over again, not saying anything to Gary. I would just notice it in my body when it would come up. For whatever reason, that frightened part would come up. I'm calling it a frightened part because I think it's really important for people to know that we have fear-based parts of our personality and love-based parts of our personality. And loving parts of our personality create pleasant sensations in our body, and it's also they're aligned with our soul. And fear-based parts of our personality are here as an opportunity for all of us to learn about ourselves more. And so when this fear-based part of my personality would come up, I would feel it, notice what it was, and just not let it control me, not let it control my behavior, not let it control me at all. And every time it would come up, I would notice it and just create with love instead, the best way that I could in that moment. And so I kept doing that over and over and over again. So it was really interesting because Gary not only had written a couple of books before we met, but this Dancing Woolly Masters in the Seat of a Soul. But then later, like we met, I would say the universe connected us a few years after the Seat of a Soul was published, and and then Gary went on Oprah about 5 years later, and it was so there were lots of reasons that I could have felt jealous because there were all these people that were really interested and really excited about Gary. But I noticed that because I had worked on that so much, I would notice it once in a while, but it wasn't anything that got in my way at all. And so it's a process. That's what I'm saying. It's a process to look at each of the parts of the personality that keep us from loving. And that was one of my big ones that I worked on. But I have others too. We all have many others. And that's all part of why we're here on the Earth School right now. And so that's I could say more, but I'd love to hear whatever you might want to say about that, Marianne.
Oh my goodness. Well, I love that you shared that with us because it's such an aha moment that you had with Gary. Because, you're so right. There's so many of us that have either jealousy or anger or something that comes up that we're just, I'm just an angry person or I'm just a jealous person. But to have that aha moment where you're looking at it going, okay, this doesn't actually need to be my identity, and then making those shifts. I mean, I think that that's such a revolutionary part that people really need to hear.
It was revolutionary for me when I read it in The Seat of a Soul. I knew that I had many parts of my personality that were based in fear, that were not aligned with my soul. But I didn't know that before I read the book. I just thought, I just do this and I'm this way and I'm pleasing people and I'm feeling inferior and I'm, all the different but I just thought that was just the way it is. That's just how I am and who I am. But as I began to unravel all of that and begin to go deeper, excavate, I should say, really looking deeper as a practice of emotional awareness, I began to see all of this as either fear-based or love-based. It's one way or the other. And a loving part of my personality became more and more in the forefront because I would choose them. And so that's how I've been unfolding since the time that we got together. Because before that, I pretty much was unconscious, even though I felt like I was a spiritual person. I was meditating, I was taking care of myself and all of that, but I didn't realize how much my fear controlled me.
And that's like the key point, is the fear controlling us, where we get to this place where we're kind of giving away our power to the fear,
We don't even know it. We
Yeah.
don't even know we have a choice. I had no idea that I actually had a choice. And that's one of the reasons that we wrote The Heart of the Soul, because we really felt that it was such a key thing to really emphasize that you do have a choice, and you can use the opportunity of fear-based parts of you and love-based parts of you active in your body as a meditation practice, noticing what you're feeling every moment in your body, in your energy centers, in your chakras, I would call them. Also in the East, they call them that. And so just becoming aware of that. So people talk about meditating every morning, and I agree. I love meditating, but I also feel that my meditation extends to every moment of my day. I want to be aware of what's going on in me so that I don't act from fear, but I act from love instead, more and more often. And that's my practice, to be aware.
Yeah. You're really living that meditation on a daily basis as situations come up, it sounds like. And what a great
I'm doing my
place
best, Marianne.
Well,
in my best moments, yes, that's true.
Well, I understand. I mean, I leave the yoga mat. I've done my meditation. I'm feeling like real empowered, and someone cuts me off on the freeway. I'm just like, oh my gosh, So, but there are ways that you can recognize, and I'm so grateful that you shared that story, because it allows us ways to recognize what is going on in us, what's triggering us, and then how to move from that. And one of the things that you talk about, you kind of briefly, touched on when we started, was authentic power. And I'd love for you to go into that for our listeners.
Well, this authentic power means that you're interested in creating with love rather than fear. So anytime that I'm choosing love rather than fear, especially when I'm activated by something, like you said, someone cuts you off on the freeway, or someone writes an email that doesn't feel good in your body, or the jealousy again, or you're feeling, maybe you're feeling inferior. Maybe you're feeling like other people are better than you, and you haven't come in as far as you want to in your life. Or maybe you're feeling superior and you think that everyone is beneath you. All of those are caused from fearful parts of the personality. They're not loving parts. And so when you begin to feel what's going on in your energy centers, you'll know that when you have thoughts about you feeling like someone's better than you and you wish you could be like them, if you check inside your body, you will notice what's going on, and you'll feel pain if you really stick with the practice, because most of the time we do other things to keep us to avoid feeling the pain. Most of the time, that's what we're doing. We're avoiding the pain, and instead, and in projecting it out onto someone else as a judgment of them or a judgment of us. But authentic power is aligning your personality with your soul. So that means choosing love in each moment that you can. And when you feel like you haven't chosen love, then being gentle with yourself and choosing again in the next moment in a different way. And so you just continue to do that and until you as Gary would be talking about in his book, the new book that he wrote, is you're emerging into a universal human. You're beginning that process by creating authentic power every day. So that's creating with love every moment. And can we do that every moment? Well, I feel like I'm working on it. I do the best that I can to create with love rather than fear. And so I become aware of my emotions and I make choices that are based in love every moment. And that's really, and open to my intuition and follow what it is that I feel guided to do from my heart.
Oh, that's just a beautiful place to come from. And I think it really helps people to identify, okay, maybe when I'm feeling these, funky feelings and kind of hurtful feelings in my heart and in any of my chakras or just in my body in general, maybe that's something I need to pay attention to.
Not only pay attention to, but know that you can change that in you by making different choices. So there's emotional awareness, becoming aware of the emotions. Are they coming from love or are they coming from fear in you? And then once you know that if you know they're coming from fear, then you can make the choice. And it's not easy to do. Like if you're enraged at someone on the freeway because they've cut you off, that's painful to feel those feelings in your body. Instead of shouting at that person and blaming them, to feel what's going on in you and where that hurts in you. And seeing that, this is something that I needed to look at for myself. The universe is giving me this opportunity to look at this in me so that I can choose to act from a more loving part rather than this angry part that comes up that's coming from fear. And so we always get those. We're getting opportunities all the time, aren't we, Marianne? You know that. We're always getting opportunities.
Yeah, I like to say I'm a work in progress,
Yes, indeed. That's why we're in the Earth School. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have some things to look at, and that's why we're here. So we can embrace that, or we can wish that we weren't here, or we can pretend like we don't have anything going on and it's everyone else's fault. But that doesn't really change anything.
And it really kind of gives our power away when we do that. If we're blaming everybody else, it's like, where do we have that personal responsibility for our own actions, emotions, and, feelings?
Absolutely. I mean, when someone sees that, when they really can take responsibility, when they commit to their growth and changing themselves, everything begins to change. And then you wouldn't think of anything else but to take responsibility for what you're experiencing, because you're the one who's experiencing it. No matter what the circumstance is, if it's outside of you, where you want to focus is what's going on inside of you, so that you can make really clear and loving decisions. And I'm not talking about people running over you and saying, if you're loving, it's not like that. It's being very clear. It's opening to your guidance, looking at what it is that you really, really need to address in that moment, because you're being given an opportunity that may not be the one you wanted to have that today, but it's the one that's come up. And that's not the way the Earth School works, where you get to know exactly what's going to happen, because you're here so that you can be flexible and open to what is going on and what's actually happening.
You can kind of be in that flow and learn as we go, because if we knew all the answers, how boring would this be, right?
Right. Absolutely. Well, boring, but also that's not the reason that we're here at all. And we can have people around us too to support us, which is what I really love. And I feel like everything in the Heart of the Soul is pointing to that, like you become aware of yourself, and you also like Gary and I are spiritual partners, but he's not my only spiritual partner. He's my partner in life. We have been together for a long time now, but I love having as many spiritual partners as possible, because I feel that it's a partnership between equals for the purpose of spiritual growth. That means anytime I'm feeling inferior or superior to someone, I can't be a spiritual partner to them because I'm in fear. So when I met Gary, I actually I knew I was being, that the universe, I'll call it the universe, was guiding me toward Gary. I didn't know why. I had no idea, because I felt so inferior to him, because he'd written these books that I read. The first one was The Dancing Woolly Masters, and that was a long time ago, 1979, when I read it, when it was published. And I was just so in awe of what physicists were recognizing about the universe. Like, we're all connected. Everything is connected. And I thought, oh, physicists are realizing this. And it was really exciting to me because I knew it was true. But no one had ever really talked to me about that so much, but I just knew. And then 10 years later, I saw Gary's name on a book, The Seed of a Soul. And I got that, read it. I thought, whatever he writes, I'm going to read. And so I read The Seed of a Soul, and it really changed the way that I look at everything. I knew what was in the book was true. It resonated deeply with me. But what happened was I realized that I had been supported all of my life. And I think that I didn't realize. I thought, oh, I'm really, I kind of thought of myself as, oh, I know things, I'm intuitive or whatever, but I didn't realize what that meant. I thought it was just something special about me. And when I read in The Seed of the Soul, that it wasn't something just special about me. It was that everyone has support and guidance from the universe. We all have that. And then I began to look back on my life and see how many times I'd been supported in my life. And I was such a gratitude for that. And so that's what began to shift the way that I looked at things. And I saw that, creating authentic power. Gary's talking about not pursuing external power, meaning doing something from fear so that you get what you want to make yourself feel better. And I'd been doing that all my life, pleasing, feeling inferior, sometimes feeling superior, and just running into just jealousy. There's so many frightened parts, but that we all experience. But when I realized, but that's okay. It's okay that I have all these, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to align myself with my soul by choosing loving parts of my personality that I also have. And so I've been working on that for a while, that process.
Well, I just love how Gary talks about you in the beginning of the book. He shares just how, connected you are to just emotional awareness. And it's kind of a river that you ride all the time, and you seem to get it very, very easily. And I think that that's so important, because I think it encourages people like, okay, this is something that I can do in my life. It's not, it's work. It's not going to be something that I can't accomplish.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's interesting, Marianne. There's a chapter in the book called The Pass-Through Effect in The Heart of the Soul. And it's a way of feeling your emotions and feeling, things are just so bad, and I feel I can't believe this is happening. And, I was aware, I thought I was aware of my emotions when I was, Gary asked me, he said, why don't we write this together, this book that I feel like that needs to be written about emotional awareness. And I said, well, sure. I never written a book before, and I really wasn't sure how I could contribute at the beginning. And so I said, but I'm open, because I always want to be open and say yes when I feel there's something that's good, it's really going to help stretch me, help me to be more aligned with my soul. So I began looking at how I could contribute to the book. And there were a couple of chapters in it, and one of them is the pass-through effect. And that really was one where I thought, Marianne, at that point, I thought I was so emotionally aware. And really what I was emotionally indulgent. I would feel all these emotions, and I'd be upset and, all this. And yes, I felt them and it was painful. But what I didn't know is that I was indulging them. I was not becoming emotionally aware. And so to become emotionally aware is to feel them in your body and choose not to dramatically act them out. And I have a feeling some of our listeners might be able to recognize this in themselves, because it was something that was so familiar to me that I thought that I had a right to act like this and feel overwhelmed and feel, like someone hurt me and how could that happen, and on and on and on and on. Well, in the process of writing this book, I learned so much about myself, and I was such a gratitude for that, because I realized, what I thought of as, I thought, well, yeah, I know about emotions. I've always been emotional person, but that isn't emotional awareness, being an emotional person and not really recognizing what you're feeling in your body and allowing yourself to feel it, but not act from it. And so I began that practice. And I think the book, it helped me so much in understanding that about myself. So I had such gratitude for saying, yes, I'll work on this book with you. But what I didn't realize is that this person, me, who thought I was so emotionally aware, wasn't emotionally aware. I was emotionally volatile, emotionally indulgent. And so the book, writing it, really helped me to feel what I was feeling and notice, look at, when I'm feeling this is fear in me. And I can feel that, and I can choose differently. I can feel, and so I want to say that too, because it seems like often people don't feel at all what's going on in their body, and they shut themselves off from their emotions, or they feel them so much that they feel they have a right to be indulging them and volatile with them. And what I learned from the book is that I don't have to be that way at all. I can feel what's going on in my body, and even if it's very painful sometimes, but not act from it. And so the book was such a gift to me, to say yes to that and learn much more about what it really means to be emotionally aware.
I'm so glad you said yes, because I think a lot of people would be really intimidated and go, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this." And I love how you take the opportunity and say yes to something that feels right, that resonates with your soul.
I'm not saying that it didn't bring up fear-based parts of my personality, but I had to keep challenging them. Ones that would say, "Oh, you can't do this. You have never written a book. Who do you think you know? Do you think you know anything about emotional awareness? Actually, you're emotionally indulgent." So I had to keep challenging all of those, feel them, and move forward with what I knew I could do to support other people who would be reading the book or listening to it. I'm going to bring it back to what Gary and I have been interested in for all these years. As we began to practice when we first met, first I asked him a million questions about the seat of the soul. It took me a while to get I still always going deeper with what's in that book. It's just so powerful to me. And what happened is I just loved practicing with Gary. I would practice all the time, because I would say things to him that I would have never said to anyone else, that frightened me to even say. Like when I said I felt jealous, that I could actually say that to him, and know that whatever I'm experiencing is either fear or love. And I knew that Gary wouldn't judge me for the things that I felt that came from fear. But he would help me to see that maybe that's a frightened part of your personality. You could look at that and feel that. And so I just kept working with that in me so that I could, actually, in fact, I just felt like it's so good to have people around you that you can actually be in your integrity with and say what's going on, and not judge. It's like, for me, when I see someone that's angry or upset, and I realize they have no idea that they're in fear. They have no idea that they have another choice. So it's such a, it brings out so much compassion when I see that. And it may be that at that time they may not be interested in looking at that. And we see it all the time on the news or in different places. We see that there are many people on our planet that are in a lot of fear. And they don't know that they have a choice. But what I love about what Gary and I love to share with people is that you do have a choice. You have a choice. You have a choice to act in love, or you have a choice to act in fear, and you have it every moment. And you can learn about how to discover that by becoming emotionally aware and by making responsible choices and opening to your intuition. And as you do that, you become authentically empowered. And so that's the process of what we've been doing. And spiritual partnership, as I said before, it's a partnership between equals for the purpose of spiritual growth. So if I'm feeling inferior and Gary notices it, he'll say something to me. He'll say, "Beloved, do you think you might be in a fear-based part right now? Because of the way you said that, I'm wondering." And so we'll always be supporting each other when we notice things. And like I said, it's not just Gary and I, but many of the co-creators, students that we've had for all these years, they become, they support each other all the time, and other people in our life, because it's a natural thing to do once you see that you can. It's not natural at the beginning because it feels like, how can I say something to someone that's really honest, because they might reject me. They might, and of course you have to have permission to do that, but it's such an amazing thing. I think I want to describe one thing. So when I met Gary, I met him at a spiritual retreat, and he was speaking at it, and I was a participant. And he came up to me because one time during the retreat, it was a week-long retreat, and he came up to me and he said to me, "I noticed that of all the people here, when I saw you, I just felt like a pushing away, and I didn't want to give you a hug." And people were really hugging at this retreat. Everyone was doing that. It was very, very sweet. And I love to hug people, and I haven't been able to do that as much during this time because we've been doing a lot of things online, but I can give hugs virtually. Anyway, so Gary came up to me and he said to me, of all the people here, I really felt like I didn't want to hug you. And he said, "I don't know why that is." He said, "I don't know what is going on, but I want to check that out in myself. And I want to understand what that's all about." And I knew what he was saying to me was just so honest and open. It just melted my heart. I thought, oh, this is just beautiful that someone's actually telling me what they're experiencing, and they know that it doesn't have to do with me. It has to do with them, and they're looking at it. It was such a surprise. I hadn't had anyone ever exactly do that before, and I hadn't had the courage to say things like that to other people. But I think mostly what would happen, like for instance, if I felt that about someone before I read The Seat of the Soul, I probably would have said, "Oh, well, that person, I don't feel really comfortable hugging them. So there must be some bad vibe or something with them," or something like that. And instead of going, "Oh, I wonder why I'm feeling that way about that person. I wonder what's going on with me. If there's something in me," because Gary knew that it was something fearful in him. It wasn't like something that you get from like an intuition, where you realize, oh, well, I just, I feel like, oh, that's probably not someone I should be around right now. But you don't have a reaction. You don't have an emotional reaction. But with Gary, he had emotional reaction, and he didn't want to be close to me, and he knew that there must be some reason for that, and so he checked in himself. But he actually shared it with me, and I thought that's amazing that he would do that, that he would share that with me, and I was just really moved by that. And then I began, and he did some other things similar to that during the retreat as well, and I began to see, oh, I could do that. I can start being honest with people. And I don't mean anyone that I don't have permission to do that with, but, if someone really wants to grow and they're interested in growing, and they want to learn about themselves rather than try to change other people, then that's what I began doing. I began practicing that with other people as well as Gary. And it was so exciting. It's just such a moving thing to know that you have other people in your life who you may not notice something about yourself, but they may, and they could say it to you and help you to look even deeper than you've already been looking. And to me, I know this, to me, this is very exciting. It's very exciting for people to learn about this and be able to practice it. But like I said, it's not something you just run up to someone and say, well, I'm not sure that I don't really want to hug you. I don't think I should be near you. It has to be said in a different way, as an experiment. Oh, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but I know it doesn't have anything to do with you, but I want to find out what it has to do with me.
I really appreciate that, because especially for him saying that to you, when Gary said that to you, a lot of people would take that personally and go, well, even though he said it wasn't about me, it's got to be about me. I wonder what's going on, but you looked at it from such a high place. You're like, okay, I'm giving him the room to go ahead and work with all that. And I'm not taking it personally. It's not my stuff.
Well, I think I do feel it was a moment of grace. There were many things that were happening during that retreat that were helping me to learn about myself. I knew that I was being connected with Gary. I didn't understand why. And it brought up many parts of my personality. And one in particular was that I felt so inferior to Gary. I didn't even think I could speak to him, let alone think I was being connected with him. I thought maybe I was a little, like maybe I'm wrong about that. And then later on in the retreat, it became very clear that I was being connected, and I was so strongly connected with him. I knew he didn't know anything about that. He didn't have that experience, but I had that experience. And so I used those moments of connection and grace to help me to learn more about myself. And so when Gary said that to me, I was just so excited because, I just thought, how wonderful that someone's really looking at themselves and willing to say something. I was just in such awe of that, because I'd never had I didn't have very many relationships with men or friends that were really open and looking at themselves. And I was so excited to be doing that, just for that to happen. And then our relationship became all about that. As we began to interact, we began to really explore and experiment with what it would mean to really recognize a frightened part of the personality and speak about it if it needs to be spoken about. Like I said, with my jealousy, at first I needed to say something, but after that, I would go inside myself and say, oh, there's that part of me again. I'm not going to let it control me. I feel it, but I'm not going to let it control me. But our spiritual partners can really help us to look at things we might not look at as deeply as we could if we didn't have that kind of relationship. And I feel that kind of a relationship is what will begin to change everything when we're creating authentic power, or have that intention to do that. When we're looking at our emotions, we're looking at our choices and choosing the best that we can to choose love. It begins to change everything. It begins to open our curiosity and our certainly our feelings of compassion. Because if you know that someone's acting from fear. And even if it's something that would cause a reaction in you, if you still know that they don't even know they're acting in fear, and you could still have compassion for them and send them love, even if they can't experience that right now. There's no reason why you can't do that. And we've had many examples throughout history of people doing that, like Gandhi or, certainly many people. I could go on with many, and many that we don't even know are doing that. And you can see things are beginning to change even in our world right now. We're meeting more and more colleagues. They may not use the same words we do, but we can see that their interest is in being loving. And that's really what we want in this world. That's why we're here.
Yeah, to come from a more loving place with one another.
Yes.
Did you have any idea when you wrote this book with Gary that it would be so relevant today? I mean, because I look at this and it's like, oh gosh, everyone needs a copy of this book too.
Well, because I know deep in my heart that creating authentic power is always relevant, and it always will be until we're authentically empowered, until we're an authentically empowered species, until we're emerging as universal humans. Yes, I didn't think of it as ever being irrelevant any more than seed of the soul. Universal truth is not irrelevant at any time. So I didn't think of it as going out of date or, no, I didn't think of it that way at all. I just thought of how can I be of most support to people. But I certainly didn't think it would be something that's a fad thing, to be emotionally aware. It's not like that at all. It's like, it's something that we're here to do, to become aware of ourselves, to become more and more loving. And that's why we're in the Earth School.
Yeah, it's a life skill many of us have never learned, and it's something, as I look at myself, it's something that it would take time to cultivate, and just conscious awareness of being in that present moment when you feel something is off balance.
Yes. You can see where it's off balance in you. You can feel what areas of your body, like if you're feeling tightness in your throat, that has something to do with your communication, either not feeling like people can't understand you. There's something, so each of the energy centers have different relevance. The heart, not letting love in, and even though you feel a frightened part that may be active in that area, you can still act from love. You don't have to, just because you're feeling pain in one area doesn't mean that you can't act from love. You just know, oh, there's frightened parts active here, but I do not need to let them control me in this moment. And I won't. But it's not easy to do, because sometimes, almost all the time, the frightened parts are pretty magnetic and they want what they want. They want to be in control, but you don't need to allow that to happen.
Yeah,
change that.
We can really get to the place where we're consciously choosing our intentions.
That's right. We get to choose it. We get to choose where we're going by choosing love. That keeps us in line with the mothership, which is our soul. So
I like the saying of that. Well, and I know in the book there are many different examples of things that we do to kind of disassociate from love in our inner selves. And I was surprised to see, being like a people pleaser, how much that is, because you hear people all the time, oh, I'm a people pleaser and I have no time for myself. I'm exhausted. And I would just love for you to share a little bit about that with us.
Well, that was the other chapter in the book that was why I needed to help write this book. Because that was a big part of me. In fact, I was always so proud that I could be, a frightened part of me was proud that I could be a chameleon and I could, fit in anywhere, in any situation, because I thought that was a good thing. But what I realized is I was trying to dampen myself and make myself fit in through a fearful part of me that needed to please people so that they wouldn't reject me, or so I wouldn't have to feel that pain of powerlessness that was underneath all of that. And so I just kept working with that in me to see how often I would please people. And it changed things in my life. It changed the people that were around me, actually, because they not only was I pleasing them, but they were really appreciating me pleasing them. And when I didn't please them anymore, they didn't have any use for me. They would rather, in other words, they were attracting other people who would please them in the way, instead of tell them what was really so in that moment. And so it's exhausting to please, because then you're doing something from fear. You're making choices from fear rather than what really is in your heart to do in that moment. And so it's an ongoing process to notice, is this intention to do this coming from love, or is it coming from fear? And what am I feeling in my body right now? What's going on in my body when I want to make this choice, or when I want to make another choice? And so it's just, for me, it's been an ongoing process. I still notice when I want to please, and I don't see it's not a problem for me. I have frightened parts that say, "Oh, well, you've been doing this for so long, you shouldn't be feeling this anymore. You shouldn't be having this come up anymore." But that's just a frightened part of my personality that is making me feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't have had this happen. I shouldn't have been pleasing this person. Instead, I'll notice and I'll go, oh, I'm going to do that differently next time. And when I do that, I do, or I do a redo. I go and I say, this is what I really meant to say to you. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say this. And just continuing this experiment of life. It's so exciting when you can experiment with your life and not have to fit into a certain way that you do something. But, oh, you know what? I just realized I did this and I didn't want to do this, and to go back. And I'm not talking about not being responsible for what you say. I don't mean it that way. I'm talking about when you see that you're doing something and you realize that it isn't coming from a loving place, and then you redo it by coming from a loving place instead. And there's nothing more exciting than that. Marianne, what have you been doing when you notice that you're pleasing? What happens?
Oh my goodness. A lot of times I will just sit and look at, why am I doing this? Is it coming from a place of I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or where is this kind of feeding into? And there's always left fear base to that. And I do the do-over a lot of the times too. I'll tell people, gosh, I didn't handle that well. Let me try this again. And so it allows me to go ahead, take responsibility for my words, and then also be able to really kind of share a more, spiritually aligned message that I'm looking to share, as opposed to whatever it was that I kind of said before, because sometimes I mess up. It happens,
But I think that's so important, isn't it? It's so beautiful what you said, because it's important to know that we're not here to be perfect. We're here to continue to practice being loving. And when we find that we haven't been, then we can do it again. We don't, and not make ourselves wrong for it.
Yeah.
But do it again. I'm going to try this over again. This isn't what I really wanted to say. So that's beautiful. Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? That's what our life's about, isn't it? Being able to support, and being able to support each other too.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably have people in your life then that will do the same thing for you then. You probably have spiritual partners as well, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, without a doubt. And it's great because you can have these really open discussions with kind of like your own little community or family of choice, or whatever you want to call it, and being able to explore things where in other places, either it's not appropriate or it just wouldn't be like a safe place to do it.
Right. And you can determine that. And you can even play with that a little bit and see if someone might be a little open, because it's really helpful. a lot of times I might say to someone, no, I'd really love for you to support me if you notice that I'm really practicing, speaking from love all the time. And sometimes I find that I'm still practicing. I'm not. I'm doing something in fear. If you notice that I'm, for instance, pleasing you, if you think that I am, please let me know that. I'd really welcome that if you would like to do that with me. And so I asked them to, I've asked them throughout the years to help me with that. And it's just so wonderful because then I end up having these wonderful spiritual partners that may not have been that way for me if they didn't know that I had the openness. And it's really great, isn't it, to have the community, the community of people who you can really speak with in the deepest way. And what we want to do is expand that, right? That's what Gary and I have been looking at, how we can expand that happening, how we can support people globally and being able to do the same thing. That's why we've been doing a lot of the things that we're doing right now. We're creating new online courses. We're creating different kinds of online events that we'll be giving. We're also creating a community, looking at how people globally can interact with each other because it's so important. And having people, for instance, right now we have people that are in groups, small groups, and they're practicing what's in the heart of the soul right now. Actually, they're going through all the chapters in the heart of the soul. I think it's every other week they do it, and then we've created questions and different things that they can do to keep practicing with each other when they're in the circles with each other. Like, I think it's twice a month. Yeah, they're twice a month in the circles. And then they just begin to share with each other what they've learned from reading that particular chapter. And it's really exciting because they all get to bring their wisdom and what they're learning, and then they get to bring that out to their family and their friends and their communities, and how they are learning to do things differently. And I love that. I just love, because I feel like spiritual growth is not just a one-person thing, meaning it's so important that we support each other in that. And of course, I have to make the decisions, my own decisions, to create with love rather than fear. But it's great to have other people in support, and that's something that I've seen for a long time. It's like as circles, communities of people begin to practice in this way, not just small groups, but that it gets more and more expansive. It will happen that way, and we're part of that, Marianne. We're part of creating that happening. And it's very exciting.
It is. It most definitely is. And I just love all of your work, both that you and Gary have done. And I'm kind of a little late on the scene for this. So I'm going through all the books right now and checking them out.
Wonderful.
Which, and that's why I felt it was so important that we have this discussion, because no matter if someone is new to your work or, maybe they're just finding out about it for the first time, it gives them a place where they can start and move forward.
It's true.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. People are becoming, the whole thing that we realize is that everyone on this planet, there's this great transformation that's happening that we talk about all the time. And it's happening for the first time in human consciousness. It's never happened before. And so everyone eventually will becoming multisensory, meaning not just you don't have only your five senses to rely on. You have your intuition. You have your other ways of sensing things, because things are very different than the way we see them just from our five sensory point of view in our mind. So it can be quite a different world and a different perspective. So it's really exciting to be able to share with people during this great time, this time of great transformation that's never happened before in human history. And in the next few generations, everyone will have made this transition, but not all people will be creating authentic power. And that's what the work is. The gift is you are becoming multisensory. The work is to create authentic power, to become aware of your emotions, and whether they're love or fear, to make choices from love, to continue to align your personality with your soul, and to grow spiritually and see that that's our mode of evolution. It's no longer survival. It's actually growing spiritually. And one thing that Gary and I always say, and I didn't say it at the beginning, that, everything that I say is something that I ask you just to look at and see if it's something that's relevant to you. But if it's not, let it go. Don't believe anything anyone says, no matter who they are. If they've written a book, or if they're a great spiritual teacher, or whatever it is, it's always up to you to check inside you to see, is that true for you? And is that something that you can use? And if you have a reaction to something that I'm saying, well, you might want to look further with that. Just like Gary had a reaction to me when everyone was hugging. He didn't want to hug me. He knew something was going on. Well, when you have a reaction to something that someone says, that there's some rich work for you to do. And so I always tell people that, because I feel like it's so important to know that no matter what anyone says, you have to check it out for yourself. And if it works, use it. If it doesn't, let it go.
I love that. Yeah, I feel the same way. If it doesn't resonate, it's okay. It's about, your spiritual development, your personal development, not getting a guru,
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Well, gosh, Linda, we could talk forever. I just love your work. I've learned so much from the books that you both have written and The Heart of the Soul. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about all of your work?
Well, first of all, they can go to seatofthesoul.com, seatofthesoul.com. That's our website. And we're going to be doing many new things in the near future. So definitely put yourself on our mailing list, and we'll let you know when the courses are coming out, and the self-study courses, and when our live online courses are going to be starting, which will be in January. We're doing a new series called the Journey to the Soul series, and we'll be going deeply into all of what we've been talking about today, but as an experiential way of learning. And we have different programs and different things, so they can I think the best way would be just to go to seatofthesoul.com and look at our website and come and join us, be a part of our community, get on our mailing list, and we'll let you know everything that we're doing, all the different things that are happening.
Well, I'm on your mailing list, and I highly suggest everyone do the same. Linda, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's such a joy to be with you. I'm just so excited that we had a chance to talk. We had such a lovely talk a few months ago, and it was just so lovely, and I'm so glad that you followed up and wanted to talk about this. And anytime, Marianne, that you have any questions, or anyone, they can send them in to us, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Well, I can't wait for us to have another conversation, Linda. My goodness, you're such a bright light in the world. I have a deep appreciation for both you and Gary for the work you do. It's changed my life, and I know it's changed countless others. So again, if you'd like to connect with Linda, you can at seatofthesoul.com for more information. There they have their books, information about events, all these great things, and make sure to sign up for their newsletter. Heart of the Soul Emotional Awareness is available everywhere books are sold. Show some love to our indie bookstores and make sure to pick up your copy there. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.